continuing in Luke chapter 1. Verse 8 to 10. But before I do, I want to go into something. Get into if you turn to Leviticus chapter 10, verses 1 and 3, just to open up, give a little picture before we go into Luke and what I'm discussing. In Leviticus chapter 10, it talks about the sons of Aaron, Nadab and Abihu. And the word reads, "And Nadab and Abihu, the sons of Aaron, took either of them his censer, and put fire therein, and put incense thereon, and offered strange fire before the Lord, which he commanded them not. And there went out fire from the Lord and devoured them, and they died before the Lord. Then Moses said unto Aaron, This is it that the Lord spake, saying, I will be sanctified in them that come nigh me, and before all the people I will be glorified. And Aaron held his peace." And the reason I wanted to mention these verses this morning before I went into Luke is because in Luke, what we're going to be covering is, last week I mentioned about Zechariah and him being a priest and him being called in the division to serve the ministry in the temple. And I wanted to read these verses here to give you a picture of what it was like at that time, bearing in mind the fact of being a priest and going into the temple, whether it was in the temple or in the tabernacle. When they went in there, they did it with fear and trembling. It wasn't taken very lightly. And this is a perfect picture of that. What had happened with Nadab and Abihu, it says they were the sons of Aaron. They were the sons of Aaron. They were the sons of the great high priest himself, Aaron, the first high priest. They went, they offered strange fire, that strange incense, whatever you want to call it. And the fire of the Lord devoured them. They were killed. They died. They did not offer their worship to God the way they should have, with honor and reverence and fear before God, as it is for anybody, any ministry. Not just us as leaders, as a pastor, as a preacher, as a teacher, but your church layman. Any of you here who serves the Lord Jesus Christ. If you serve the Lord Christ, then you ought to deal with fear and trembling also. Moses tells Aaron here in verse 3, he says, "This is it that the Lord spake." What did he say? The Lord said, "I will be sanctified in them that come near me." Sanctified. He's saying, I am to be holy. When people go before the Lord, when the priests went into the temple, when they went into the tabernacle, they put on their priestly garments, arrayed in the priestly garments. So you can imagine what it was like for any priest to go into the tabernacle at that time. And then you have, with that in mind, go to Luke now. And just to keep it in context, I'm going to read from verse 5 to verse 13. "There was in the days of Herod, the king of Judea, a certain priest named Zacharias of the course of Abiah. And his wife was of the daughters of Aaron, and her name was Elizabeth. And they were both righteous before God, walking in all the commandments and ordinances of the Lord blameless, and they had no child. Because that Elizabeth was barren, and they both were now well stricken in years. And it came to pass that while he executed the priest's office before God in the order of his course, according to the custom of the priest's office, his lot was to burn incense when he went into the temple of the Lord. And the whole multitude of the people were praying without at the time of incense. And there appeared unto him an angel of the Lord, standing on the right side of the altar of incense. And when Zechariah saw him, he was troubled, and fear fell upon him. But the angel said unto him, Fear not, Zechariah, for thy prayer is heard, and thy wife Elizabeth shall bear thee a son, and thou shalt call his name Well, last time we talked about Zechariah being the priest, and how him and his wife had been righteous and justified by the grace of God before God. They didn't have no children. They were old. But today, we go into verses 8 through 10. And we see that it says it came to pass. What came to pass? That Zechariah went to perform his service in the temple, to serve in the temple of God in the order of his course, according to the custom of the priest, it says. His lot was to burn incense when he went into the temple of the Lord. And all the multitude was outside him. By the sovereign hand of God, by the grace of God, and the providence of God, Zechariah had been blessed with the opportunity to go in to the temple, to perform his priestly service before God. This was a privilege. Granted, you got to remember too, again, Zechariah was an old man, and he'd been waiting. Him and his wife had been praying, possibly, or children. The one thing that the priest was to do was to go in, offer his incense to the Lord, and to pray. The scripture is not clear as to Zechariah what he was praying for. It doesn't say here. But we can assume that he was praying for the people of Israel, for the people of God, and possibly for a child. So he's there, and he's offering his incense, and he's praying before the Lord at the golden incense altar in the temple. And this was a chance of a lifetime for him. When they went in to serve, to minister, there was 3 priests. One priest performed the service in the temple, one burned incense, another changed the showbread on the Sabbath day, and another took the charge of the fire on the altar of the burnt offerings. And so the lot had fell upon Zechariah. So when they went in there together, but they left Zechariah to do his service. It's like this. They went in, there's the court, the outer court, and then there's an inner court. And then they went in there, it's a holy place, and then there's the Holy of Holies where the veil is. That's where Zechariah was. He was before the veil. The Holy of Holies was the place where the high priest himself could go in on the Day of Atonement. Nobody could go in there but him. I want you to really think about this. Is that when Zechariah went in there, even though he was old, I'm sure that he did it with fear and trembling. Maybe he might have had that thought in mind about what had happened with Nadab and Abihu, and over time that what had happened to others, possibly. You know that when the priests would go into the temple or into the tabernacle, they had bells on them, attached to their robes. So when they went into the temple to minister to the Lord, the people outside could hear and know that the priest was still alive, because they could hear the bells. If they didn't hear the bells, guess what? He was probably dead. But what would happen to somebody that died back then? If they died in the temple, you know what they would do? They would tie a rope to their leg. Because they couldn't go in there. So they have a rope tied to their leg and put them out. So it's a fearful thing. It was a fearful thing to serve the Lord in the tabernacle as well as in the temple. To be a priest. It's not to be taken as a light thing. The Bible says that God is not mocked. What you reap what you sow, actually. But the priestly service was that they were to keep the incense in the temple burning all the time. Go to Exodus chapter 30.